Hi, I'm D.Scott Smith, motivational listener from DScottSmith.com, and you are listening to the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy from compassmedia.ie.
Hi there, this is Alan here from the Social Media Talks podcast, and before we begin this episode, we'd like to give a big shout out to our sponsors and also our supporters. The Social Media Talks podcast is sponsored by ContentCal, creating a solution to simplify and speed up how teams can plan, collaborate on, approve, publish and analyze social media content in a familiar and intuitive calendar interface. In just 3 years, they have been trusted by over 10,000 businesses and agencies in 110 countries to deliver social media content at scale and have recently won an award for the Content Management Tool of the Year. For more information on ContentCal, visit their website at contentcal.io. And now, this week's episode.
Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and thank you for joining me. This is the Social Media Talks podcast, episode number 71. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, and this is the podcast to help business owners who want to learn more about social media marketing. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. You can also join our Facebook group by logging on to facebook.com/groups/social media talks. And we're looking forward to today's show. Today I'm going to be joined by D.Scott Smith. He is a collaborator sitting in the junction of strategy and execution. He is known as a motivational listener, and Scott is a speaker, coach, mentor who inspires and motivates you. His company works with businesses and individuals to help them enhance their motivational listening. And Scott is the author of 2 books, The Motivational Listener, Be Interesting by Being Interested, and also The Practical Skills to be a Successful at Business Networking Events. Prior to becoming a full-time entrepreneur, Scott worked in large companies and small companies in leadership roles, which include the CEO, the COO, and General Manager. He speaks on motivational listening, business networking, leadership, and international change. And Scott also teaches a science-based method to quickly and confidently build a network of advocates. He has an online course, books, and works with individuals to learn to become motivational listeners. And today we're going to be talking all about the subject of motivational listeners. So without further ado, I think we will transition straight over to the interview with Scott. Hi Scott, how are you? And thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast. It's a pleasure to have your company. How are you today?
And what an honor to be on your podcast, Social Media Talks. I've loved listening to the episodes, and I'm excited. It's a beautiful spring day here in Oregon, and here we are inside darkened rooms talking to each other, but it's still a great day.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I'm delighted to have your company, and thanks for listening to the podcast as well, because it's always nice to hear people's feedback as well on it. And of course, today we're going to be talking all about motivational listening and being a motivational listener, and as you say yourself, being interesting by being interested. I love that. I think that's just a fantastic little tagline there. Before, I suppose, we start and we get into the conversation, maybe you might give us a little bit of a brief background on yourself before we get started. I've given you a brief introduction at the start of the show, but you might give us a little bit more detail about yourself first.
Yeah, sure. So my background is that so my undergraduate degree was in business and finance, but my minor was behavioral sciences. So psychology, sociology, cultural anthropology. So the individual, the group, and then how we relate to each other. And it turns out that having knowledge in that has been very helpful and beneficial in my business career. So I ended up spending 4 years in accounting, 12 years in banking, and then 7 years running supply chain operations for Hewlett-Packard. And before I escaped and kind of went on my own, went rogue, right? Like many of us do, start in the corporate world and then figure out, there's a better way to go. And so I got involved with digital marketing, and now I'm really focusing in on coaching people about business networking. And that's where motivational listening comes in. And we can talk about some of the details, but essentially it's a science-based process where the goal is to leave the speaker, which if we were having a conversation, that would be you, to leave the speaker feeling better about themselves than when we started the conversation.
Wow.
So there's a brief introduction.
Wow, that's amazing. And of course, it's a lot of very, very interesting roles you've had, a cross section of them, if nothing else. And and of course, I met you at the Social Media Summit here in Dublin a number of years back, and we had a good conversation about digital marketing then. And I think it's just it's progressed over the time that we've sort of got to know each other as well. So it's a pleasure to have you on here on the podcast as well today. So I suppose the best place to start is I think what is a motivational listener in its rawness, and I think that's probably the best way to start, and people can understand it a little bit more in detail.
Yeah, it really started. I'll say it became formalized and crystallized as a process, starting with the talk that I gave at the Social Media Summit. And we had some great speakers there. I forget how many speakers and how many sessions there were. And over the 2-day conference, there's a lot of great information. Most of the speakers that were there were deep knowledge experts in their area. Facebook advertising, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube. Great speakers, great talent, very deep knowledge. So my topic was a little broader. Since I was speaking to social media professionals, I really wanted to focus in on kind of, if you will, the responsibilities that we create. So that the topic, the title that I had was the psychology and physiology of relationships. So basically what we did is went through and looked at the academic research and proved that the relationships that we create digitally are every bit as strong as the relationships that we create face to face. And when you create relationships, you create obligation or responsibility. And so many businesses, what I saw when I was doing, I'm auditing different businesses out there in their social media presence and their digital presence, they didn't treat people the same online as they would in person.
Totally. I totally agree. They're what I call digital monsters. They change. People just change from one shape to another. It's incredible. And I've said that so many times on this podcast as well. And I totally agree with what you're saying on this.
Digital monsters. I mean, that's a great image because it really does convey kind of the way they, and this is not universal and it's certainly not intentional.
No,
right.
I totally agree. I think people, if you're not face to face with someone or you're not having that conversation, you can sort of reframe every time you want to say something. Like for instance, if I'm having a conversation with you face to face, like how we are here, we're sort of more involved with each other. Whereas if I'm talking to you online, you could write something and then I look at it and I'd say, okay, I'll answer it this way, and then suddenly I go, no, hold on, I have to change that. And it's semi not natural type of thing to do that. So I think there's a lot of that goes on within digital and social media, but as you say, it's not intentional. It's just, I think it's in the makeup of people and the way we are. And I think we can get away with it a little bit more when we're online. I don't know what your viewpoint is on that. I'm sure you have one.
Relationships. I mean, it's so I love Ted Rubin's return on relationships, right? The ROR.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it really nails it, right? Because when it comes down to all the things that we can do, the relationships are important. So on a personal level, we can understand that. On a business level, we think of it as your customer. Those are the relationships, right? So these are the people who keep you alive as a business. So why would you not treat them like your absolute best friend, close family, right? Yeah. So motivational listening really came out of this research that I did looking into those digital relationships that we create and really looking at it from the psychology and physiology that goes on. So what happens when we create relationships? So there's different hormones that are released, right? So when we have success, when we complete a project or have some moment of completion, dopamine fires off in our brain.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have that realization, so when you solve a problem, all this dopamine fires off and it feels good, and you want to do that again, right? There's also another hormone called oxytocin. This is sometimes called the trust molecule, right? This helps build relationships. This allows you to feel connected to another person. And there's different ways to release that. One of them is through physical contact. So when you meet somebody face to face and you look them eye to eye, you reach out and you shake hands with them. You make that physical contact. It releases oxytocin. Right? Now the same thing can happen digitally as well. So this is a way that's one of the things that helps us connect as humans. So whether you're doing it face to face or you're doing it digitally, you're still creating those relationships and those bonds. And again, I'll just go back to the responsibility, and I'll tell a story about when I was working with a radio station. And two things happened. One of them is that as I was going through and auditing their Facebook, one of the on-air talent people had posted a comment or posted a question on the Facebook. What's one of the best blessings that's happened to you this week? And some guy puts on there, it looks like my family and I are going to get housing assistance. Well, this is putting yourself out there, right? I mean, your name, picture is right there. And you're saying, hey, the government's going to come and help my family out. That's very personal information that this person chose to share, but it was important to him. No comment. No, they didn't even like the guy's comment.
I'd say
right.
No.
There's the monster.
Yeah, and that is really it. As I always say to people, it's like if I said hello to you on the street or in a meeting or wherever it may be, if we met in a bar or something like that, and I said hello, you will answer me back by saying at least hello to me. So why does it change when you become online? And this is where the digital monster, I think, starts to kick in.
Oh, it's absolutely. Right. And so as I went through and I looked at this, and this is, I pointed this out. And so they hired me. They contracted with me to do digital marketing with them. And so I'm posting stuff and then I'm responding to people. Right. So I remember I'd be in the grocery store and I get a notification. So then check it, respond back to them, and then move on with the day. But people were being acknowledged. And now you have experience in radio. But radio has changed over the years, right? People have this image of the DJ behind the microphone with the turntables, spinning records. But a lot of radio is just digital, right? So there's the on-air talent back in the home studio somewhere recording this stuff. It gets uploaded to a computer, and they're recording it in midnight. But they're saying, hey, good morning, welcome Chicago, and it gets played on air, right? And there's nobody there. But people don't know that they have this image of the DJ behind the mic.
Yeah, he's sitting there in the studio, yeah.
Absolutely. So we had this, there's this radio station. They were broadcasting digitally. So they had a customer who was hundreds and hundreds of miles away listening through the digital stream. And she would make comments on the posts, and I'm responding to them. And I could tell by reading the comments that this person had mental health issues, right? So, but I'm responding to her just as if she had walked into the room, right? As best we could. Sure enough, about 3 years ago, Christmas Day, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, she posts that she's suicidal, very depressed and suicidal. Now, you don't just pass that by. So, but what can I do, right? So I'm on there saying, you need to call 911, you need to call the emergency services, you need to call some friends, whatever you do not be alone. And I can tell you, she is alive today. So I'm happy for that years later. But that's a responsibility. And so when you create those relationships, you have to take that seriously.
Yeah. And I think it's very true. And like that, as you say, is if you had not have answered that, probably that post or that comment, it could have been a totally different outcome. You know what I mean? Which we obviously we don't want to think about that.
No.
It's happening, but the point being is that may have been just the piece that she needed for that connection, for someone just to reach out and say, yeah, well, look, we're in this person. To, you know, because we all have our states of mind and whatever. And when we're in that type of state, we need some help and whatever. And if you're reaching out on social media, there's a reason why she's reaching out on social media, because that's why she wants someone to help, or someone to even give her a bit of support or a bit of encouragement or whatever, you know, to take her out of that situation. So I think it's so important. And like in business and also on your personal profiles and stuff like that is you know, that if people have these conversations, you know, we should be answering, we should be taking that time out. And when I hear people saying, oh, I'm too busy, I can say, well, then why are you doing it? Oh, I'm doing it because everyone else has to do it. And I'm going, really? You know, would you put your hand in the fire if I put my hand in the fire? Probably not, you know, so.
And, you know, the conversation that I was having with her didn't start with the crisis. It started just on the casual comments. Oh, I like this song. I like that program. I like this or whatever. And we were having this conversation. So we didn't just wait till that crisis. We were building that relationship. So I believe that part of that was when I responded back to her. It was her acceptance of that was also based on that we had built that relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
We established that trust.
Yeah. And I think that's a key important part. Like, you know, it's like I always say, you know, there's no like and trust. If I don't know you, I won't like you. If I don't like you, I won't trust you. And it's that scenario. But I think it's, as you say, it's about building relationships. And you just talked about Ted Rubens. I remember when he was on, and I think he's on episode number 7 or 8 on the podcast. But I've gone back and I've actually listened to it again, and the information that he actually talked about on the podcast that day is still relevant today. It's timeless type of thing. And he talks about, as you say, return on relationship. And he made the point of saying, when you do start a relationship online on social media, and you decide then, you know, you take it offline. You hear this where people say, oh, you know, start the conversation online and then take it offline. And he goes one step further and says, and bring it back online, because at the end of the day, you're only going to meet that person for a certain amount of time. But if you want to keep in contact with them, you've got to keep that conversation going along after you've met that person in person, for want of a better word. And I think it's so important that, and it's part of, I think it's as much as anything is, it's common courtesy to talk to people and respond. If they're taking the time out to talk to you, you should be talking, at least answering them back with a thank you or yeah, sure, no problem, or whatever it may be. You know, simple.
Acknowledge something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, this is the mantra that I always used was engage and validate. Right. So when you engage with somebody, so you put content out there, then they engage with that. They like it, they make a comment, they share it. Now you validate them to say, hey, thank you for retweeting that, for reposting it. I appreciate your comment. At least like the comment. Say, you know, I read it. Yeah.
And it goes so long, it goes so far, because what happens is like, I remember I connected with Madeline Sklar on Twitter a couple last year or the year before. I think it was the year before, nearly at this stage. And it's something that's always stuck in my mind is when I did connect with her first time, she came on and she'd done a video message, a simple video message saying, thanks Alan for connecting, looking forward to talking to you. And I was blown away by that, for the simple reason that she had taken time. It wasn't so much what she had said, it was that she had taken time out of her day to do the simple little 20-second video that was sent to me, and I got it directly. And that proves that, you know, as you say, that dopamine going off in your brain. Like, I remember when I got that, I was blown away by it. I was saying, wow, this is fantastic. I'm friends with Madeline Sklar, and since then we have become good friends. But at the same token, it was that connection that stuck in my mind, where it was like, you know, you'd have whatever it is, 2,000 followers on Twitter. I can count on them on my hand, the people that have said thanks for connecting with me, you know. And I think this is where we need to start building that out, as you say, and becoming that person that's able to connect and also to engage with them.
Yeah, I think, you know, Brian Fanso, and he also says, and this, I don't know if this is original with him, but I will give him the credit for it. It says that social media, when you make those connections, it turns handshakes into hugs.
Yeah, totally. I love that one. I love that. He says that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And it's true. It's so true.
And it's just it's a tool, right? The social media is just a tool. So one of the things I talk about is leadership. And when I share about that, leadership is not the goal. It's just a tool to get something done. And social media is not the goal. It's a tool to get something done. You want to build relationships. You want to, you want to sell products, but people have to know about it. And as you say, know, like, and trust, right? So they have to know about the company. They have to like what they stand for and trust that they'll deliver, right? And so it's just a tool. It's not a goal in itself.
Yeah. And it says, and I always use it when I'm teaching, is like, it's social media. What is it? It's 2 words. So break the 2 words down. So the first one is social. And what do we do? Right. How do we be social? We talk, we connect, we answer questions, we have a bit of fun. But then the other one is this media. And what is a media? It's the tool to get it out there. It's the tool to connect and build them relationships. And that's how, I've made a huge amount of friends through social media that I wouldn't. And we spoke about it off air when I walked into the Social Media Summit a couple of years back. And I says, I'll just go in here and I'll just sit at the back and I'll, take the notes and listen to the speakers. And there were some fantastic speakers on. And I walked in the door and the girl in reception says, and I remember I think it was Gillian, and she turns around and she said, "Oh, hi, Alan." And I'm going, "Hello." And she says, "Oh, I'm such and such." And I'm, "Oh, right, okay." And I walked around the corner and about 10 or 15 people started talking to me and I'm going, wow, I've now get to know, because I've been talking to them online, but now it was offline and it was great to connect. And I think that's where lasting friendships begin as well, and with that as well,
That's a great story. I was just at Social Media Marketing World in March, and I'm just walking through, and there was a volunteer, and everyone's got name tags on. And I look over and I see the guy's name tag, and it says it's Jim Fuhs, Fuhs, in his company Fusion Marketing. And we've been connected on Twitter for a long time and involved in some different chats, different things. And I'm walking through and I'm like, Jim Fuhs, Fusion Marketing, right? And it goes from he's just a volunteer directing traffic at some conference to we're friends and hugging. Yeah. Right. Fabulous.
And that's what it is. And that's what it is. And then, of course, as you say, it's when you start going to them, networking meetings or them conferences, it's about being able to, as you say, become a good listener, but also knowing the skills and the tools to be able to move that and move that conversation to where you're not walking into a room and standing in the corner and hoping that someone's going to come over and even say hello to you, because, we've all been there. I know I can stand hand on heart and say, yes, that was me at one stage, but now it wouldn't.
Yeah. And that's a great moment to talk a little bit about what I'm involved in now on the coaching side around, again, using motivational listening, being a motivational listener as a tool to connect, right, and really focusing on live events. So people that go to trade shows, conferences, networking events, chambers of commerce type things. So what do you do? Because we know that networking is important, but what is networking, right? So networking is not going into that conference. So if you walk into Social Media Marketing World or the Social Media Summit as a digital marketer, it's very unlikely that you're going to sell your services because they all sell the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of people will walk in going, yeah, you need to, I'm trying to sell my services to you. But if you go in looking for advocates, and an advocate is somebody who is willing to publicly stand up and promote you, put their reputation on the line and say, oh, if you need to, you're in Ireland and you want to start a podcast, well, you need to call Alan. You need to get compassmedia.ie, go over to his website, get his contact, or here it is. He's the man that you need to talk to, right? So your advocates become your sales force for you.
Yeah, most important people that you, and like that, people forget about that and they go, oh yeah, well I have a sales team, and I'm going, well hold on, I wrote a piece like that on employee advocacy, and it's just exactly the same as you say. It's when you start connecting, as you say there, when you walk into the social media marketing world, everyone there does exactly the same thing. It's about the connections that happen. It's about the connections that you build. And that when someone else is talking outside of that conference to someone else, that they're going to say, oh, well, talk to, D. Scott, and he'll be able to help you with that. That's exactly where people want to go. And that's what you want people to be doing for you.
Right. Yeah. Because we know word of mouth marketing works. It works really well. And, because if I said, well, who do I trust? So I trust my buddy Alan. I call him up. I say, hey, who does whatever the service is? I need a plumber. Who did you use?
Yeah, exactly.
Or you'll tell me the truth. Oh, don't call that guy. Yeah. Don't call that company.
He drowned me in the house. We're swimming here at the moment. Yeah.
So this is, these are the relationships that we build, whether they're in person or digitally. Those are the relationships that we trust. That's where we turn. So in building your network, you need to have a process and a method to be able to do that. And not everybody, we're social creatures. We're designed to be together, to connect with each other. But it doesn't mean that when you walk into that room with 1,000 people, that you know what to do.
The likelihood is people don't know what to do.
No. It's you walk in, work with this engineer. He's like the engineer's engineer living in the heart of Silicon Valley. Daryl told me, he goes, whenever I go to a networking event, the first thing I think of is how long do I have to stay before it's rude for me to leave?
Yeah, I've heard that from people before as well.
Or you feel like throwing up, right? I mean, you're just so nervous. You're going to see, what if and it's all those fears that we have of being rejected. And the other thing is, sometimes we don't want to go to these events because it's going to feel like a 2-hour sales session. Bad commercials and hard sell. Everyone trying to sell me. You need Compass Media.
I think that's the biggest. I think that is the biggest turn off when I used to go to when you go to a networking meeting. Like if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, hiya, I do this," I go, "That's great," and I make my exit very quickly from that person. Whereas if you come up and you say, "Hiya, how's your day going?" Or, or what are you up to? Now I'm going, okay, hold on. This could be an interesting conversation because that person hasn't directly just gone straight in for the sale type of thing because I don't need that. I'm there to maybe find out who people are, but I'll find out my way as opposed to your way. Don't force something on me.
Yeah. And so with being a motivational listener, what we have is a defined process that helps you capture the person's attention. And I'll tell you a little bit about the science behind that in a second here. But you capture that person's attention and then you direct the conversation with the questions that you ask. And this is the part where you become interesting by being interested.
Very good.
The term motivational listener itself, right? So we've heard motivational speaker for years. So when you throw something different like that, you go, oh, motivational speaker, oh, listener. Well, that's interesting, right? It causes people to focus. And so I was helping a company write some copy for some advertising. And they're a cleaning company. And one of the things they do is they work with hotels. So they go in and they clean the lobby because they're house cleaning staff. They do the rooms and kind of the general stuff, but they can't do the big clean the whole floors and the walls and all this stuff, right?
The deep cleans.
Right? That deep cleaning. So one of the lines that we wrote for them said, a clean lobby is like music to your guests' eyes.
Very
okay,
good.
So music to your ears, right? Okay, we expect that. Music to their eyes. Oh, well, we just took something and we shifted it just a little bit. And what that does is our brains can process a lot of information, right? So when we're having this conversation, you can be thinking about, what you did this morning, what you're going to do this evening, what you're going to do this weekend. Your brain can process information. You're involved in the conversation. You're not being rude, but the research says we daydream between 30 and 50% of our waking hours.
I would agree with that. To a certain,
yeah. So in a 40-minute conversation, you daydream for 20 minutes, I daydream for 20 minutes, and hopefully there's some overlap.
So hold on, Scott, you're not actually listening to me?
I'm fully involved, and my brain is processing all this other information. Now, here's the deal. This is part of the brain science, and this is the part that I love. So right behind your eyeballs, there's a part of your brain called the orbital frontal cortex. The OFC, we'll call it the OFC, orbital frontal cortex. This is the part of your brain that's responsible for error detection. So when you activate that, you cause the person to focus. So when you say music to their eyes, people read that and they go, oh, wait a minute, that's different. They're not daydreaming. They're not thinking about the other things. They're thinking about that advertising moment. Motivational listener. Oh, well, that's interesting. All of a sudden, they're not daydreaming. They're thinking about me when I say that. So one of the questions that I ask, and I give everyone in your audience full reign to use this question at your next event. When you meet somebody, don't say, hi, how are you? Say, hey, Alan, how's your world?
Yeah.
Okay. Unexpected. And it causes you to focus. Right? Because now you have to interpret my world. So is my world this studio? Is it my company? Is it my family? Is it my place in the universe?
Yeah. It's, and I suppose it's, as you say, it's not so much tricking the mind, but I think it's making it go, hold on, stand back for a minute here and let's process that. But when we process it, as you say, you're in that moment and you have their attention. So it's, So
you can't. Yeah, you're not daydreaming. You're focusing on that moment, right? So when you approach somebody at an event and you say, how's your world? And this is the challenge that I have for you. And this is the one I throw out. And I've had people do this and they get great results. Next time you're at the store and you're checking out, the cashier is going to ask you these cliched questions, expected questions. And you will continue to daydream while you answer them. How's your day? Did you find everything you're looking for? Yes, I did. Okay. Then ask them, how's your world?
Yeah, totally.
Watch their face. They'll stop. They're thinking. They're not thinking about, oh, I get off in an hour or what I'm going to do this weekend. They're going, what is that? What am I doing?
Yeah.
You will get great response. Now, because when you do that, that activates that OFC, the orbital frontal cortex, causes your brain to focus. Here's another thing that part of your brain is responsible for, and it is remarkable. It is responsible for vocal and facial recognition. So when you meet somebody and you give them something that causes them to activate that part of their brain, you imprint your face and your voice right inside their head. Oh,
very good. Very good. No, because I was thinking the other way of it, like, oh, right, it's okay, you're focusing on that person, but it's, as you say, it's a lasting memory. It's a subconscious memory as much as anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now you've created that connection with them. This is why I talk about be interesting by being interested. So, and then you're directing these questions. So first of all, you activated that part of their brain. Now your voice, the sound of your voice and your face starts to get imprinted on them. You shake their hand. Now you release oxytocin. You create that bond between somebody. And then you direct the questions. It's not that you don't talk about yourself, but the goal is not to continually talk about yourself.
Yeah.
One of the things I'll say is that the elevator pitch is dead. Put it with your flip phone.
Yeah. It's, and just when you're talking about that there and asking that particular question, I remember it was over Christmas this year. I was actually it's like a coffee shop, Nespresso. They do all the the coffee and for the percolators and stuff like that. Fabulous, great stuff. And I was in there and they brought out these new cups and whatever. It's like a glass cup. And I went in because I said, I want to get some of them and whatever. I went in to price them up and just happened to see them there. And there was a girl standing and she was packing a shelf up with new coffee cups or new coffee stuff and whatever. And she went, oh, how are you today, sir? And I just turned around straight out without even thinking about it. I just went, I'm wonderful. How are you? And she jumped back, and she actually jumped back, and I says to her, I says, did I startle you? She says, I'm working in retail for the last 15 years, and no one has ever said, I'm wonderful to me. And she turned around and I turned around and says, well, now you have. And I know that had a lasting effect, because what it done was it also brought a smile onto her face, and then she made her, as you say, made her think. And it's only now when you're saying these things that I see now that why that reaction happened,
Engage and validate, right? So the two of you engaged, but when you responded in a way that validated her.
Yeah.
So, I'll go back to that mantra, engage and validate.
Yeah. And it really is. It's so important. And I would do it on a regular basis. I always say, when you walk into a shop and someone says to you, hi, how are you? I would say, how are you more so? ask the question back because and people go like, I've often been out with my wife and she'll say, why do you always do that? And I go, because I'm interested to know how their day is, because they're probably saying that question every 5 minutes to someone. So if I can give them and find out how they are, it means that they feel valued as much as what I do is when they ask that. And I think it really changes the whole, I suppose, the whole aspect of the conversation as well, as much as anything else.
So next time you do that, ask them, how is their world?
I will. I'm going to use that now. I have to admit, I will.
And it's fun. So our family was off at this resort, and so we're staying in this little condo, and they've got the rec center, the recreation center, got the swimming pool, hot tub, all that kind of stuff, right? So at the front, you check in, and there's a lady there handing out the towels. Oh, welcome to the resort, blah, blah, blah. Here's your towel. Oh, thank you. Deposit them over there. And are you enjoying your stay? Right? Very expected questions. So we respond, and then I asked her that exact question. Well, how's your world? And her husband had moved to the area a few years back. He was in construction, and they finally got to a point where they were getting ready to close on a house. They were buying a house after being in the area for all these, for several years. And for her, that was like this moment of, now I'm part of this community. We own a home.
Yeah.
It was a very big deal for her, right? And so by asking that one question and then listening to her for just a few minutes as she told this story, the rest of the days that we were there, every time we came in, we had a much deeper connection than every other person that walked in, right? Yeah. And I asked her, how's your world? 3 words.
I do it all the time. When we go to weddings, anytime we go to a wedding anywhere, and the girl would be coming around and they'd be serving your table, and they put your food down and they serve and say, oh, do you want extra this? Do you want whatever, the vegetables or whatever? And I always say, the first time they come over to the table to take the order, I make sure I find out what their name is that waiter or that waitress's name is. And the reason I do it is because I know then the next time that she comes over, she's going to remember me. So, and I would always make sure that I connect with them as much as anyone, because I've often been at dues and stuff like that, and you'd be walking around and people would just be turning their nose up and saying, oh, they're only part of the staff. But then people who are part of the staff are probably going to be, more important to you. Like, who's to say that they don't, well, you know what I'm talking about. But
exactly. Is it the head chef or is it the busboy?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And because they're all part of a unit type of thing that works. But I think when you connect with them, and one of the guys who was with us one day at the wedding, he says, I've seen you do that at every wedding. Why do you do it? And I told him, and he went, yeah, I might.
And it's just the right thing to do.
Exactly,
right?
It is. And it's politeness, you know what I mean?
We're all in this together.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's what I say. We're just in this together. So motivational listener, using that as a tool to help people connect at events. So, explain some of the science. So it's a science-based process, and there's a definite method that goes through, because we know business networking is important. And so I've created a training course, but I really want to focus on the individual coaching, because the thing that I learned, you go all through college and you go to work and they're like, yeah, you're going to the trade show, or you're going, go to this networking event, and you just get advice like, well, you need to pick the right events to go to, and you need to create personal connections. And I'm like, yeah, but what is it actually that, as you say, what is it actually that you do?
Yeah.
What do you actually do? How do you approach people, and how do you approach famous people? So you've had some great famous people on this podcast, and but people will be starstruck. So what do you do? What's the process? How would you go in to social media marketing world and say, oh, look, there's Mari Smith. Oh, there's Steve Dotto, right? But I don't want to go talk to him because, I'm just me.
Yeah. And that in itself is where people put barriers up, and they say, oh, I'm not good enough, or whatever. For some unknown reason, they do that. And I think it's human nature more so than anything. Why would they want to talk to me? But like that, as you said, I've interviewed some super guests on the podcast. they're just as human as what you are. They still get up in the morning, they still have a shower, they still go to bed at the same in the same type of bed as you. It's just they're doing it differently. But at the same token, you know, I suppose we're all created the same way. We just have different angles of what we do. But I think it's most important is like, and I do it with all my guests. I would always make sure that I get on before the podcast starts and I'd have a chat with them. So one, they get comfortable with me and I get comfortable with them, but I also get to know them. And then when we do a podcast, it's like a chat. I like two friends talking because there's no sort of like, as I said, like I've had a number of big names on the podcast, including yourself. But
it is an honor.
But at the same token, and I think it's more the human connection, and it's being able to connect with that person because we're all just doing the same type of job.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's very important, as you say, to understand, and I think that comes from yourself, is having that your own inner belief. There's no difference between me and you. So, you know, let's just connect and see what we can do. If we can work together, or if we can connect and we can just chat, well and good. I've built a relationship. I've started that relationship. We might meet for some time, but we'll know each other online. We connect. You know, and I think that's a key important part of everyday life now.
And I think Steve Jobs had that great quote, right? That said, you know, there's no limit to what you can do when you realize that this world was built by people no smarter than you are.
Yeah. And it's very true. It's like we had Adrian McIntyre on the podcast, Dr. Adrian McIntyre, and he talked about storytelling. And we were going through the idea of how we tell stories and why we tell stories. And it was a really interesting conversation we had. Stories are what connect us. They are not what separate us. Because we all, you know, and it's like that. We all have our own stories, but we all take from each other's stories and we interpret them whatever way we feel that it will reach out to us. And I think that's so important. He says, like, you know, we should be more story listeners than we should be storytellers. And similar here, what you're saying is the same, motivational listeners as opposed to motivational speakers.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know,
I don't know where all this stuff comes from sometimes.
Well, it's fabulous, right? I was working with a startup a few years back, and it was focused on audio editing, so just a different tool. And so the foundation of that, and I love when you talk about stories, because this goes back to the foundation of, now we abandoned that company, the process, but the foundation was, people connect through stories, and stories are best told in the human voice. So it was really focused around this medium of podcasting, right? Of that audio, because you can read a story, but audiobooks are so great, especially when it's the author that reads it. Yeah. Because they know that information so intimately.
Yeah. And you get that feeling.
Yeah. So stories, we connect through stories. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's, as you say, with an audiobook, especially when it's the author reading it, you know where it's coming from the tone of the voice, whereas if it's actually someone who's you're paying to do it, it doesn't come across as much. It's still, you get the information, but it doesn't connect as deeply with you as it would with someone else. And I think that's the same with podcasts. Like, I would listen to 10, 12 podcasts a week, but it's interesting. It's what interests me to listen to, and I can feel the emotion, and like there'll be a cross section. And it's the same with this. Like, I think it's about connecting, and it's also about listening as well. Yeah.
And that's, and I just wanted to put a plug in for another project that I'm working on. Hello There Human. So you can go to hellotherehuman.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes.
The foundation of that is, the phrase is, in a connected world filled with people longing for connection. And so what we're really focusing on there is communication skills. So if you go there, it kind of, you know how websites have tabs? In this case, it reads like a book. So I'm working with Julia Jacobs. She's a graphic artist, and she's created so it looks like it goes through like a book. And but we're really focusing on education around communication. So how you connect face to face with people.
Brilliant.
And so we've created these characters that kind of look like the classic alien head, but they're it's a cat or a bear or a dog or a sheep or something like, an animal, right? And the concept is that on the outside we're different, but when it comes down to it, we're all just the same. And we just want to, and we want to connect. And we want to connect. So part of what we're trying to do with this is that we're hoping that people will. So there's actually a Snapchat filter I created, so you can get a little baseball hat with the character on there. Hello, they're human, and or put it on your backpack, put it on your coffee mug. But my vision is that if you're walking through an airport and you've got what we call these little beacons, and someone sees it, you're open to a human-to-human connection. And so you could actually greet some. So if I'm walking through the airport and I've got the one of the little beacons there, you could say, "Hello there, human."
Brilliant. I love it. That's great. That really is.
We connect. Not a long-term friendship, just like, hey,
yeah,
I'm in the coffee shop, I'm in the airport, I'm willing to have a connection. This is not a dating site. This is not a relationship building site. This is just saying, hey, we want to talk human.
Yeah, and it's open. It's open to interpretation of whatever way that conversation goes. And I think that's great. I had that. I was actually in a coffee shop only a couple of weeks back, and I was actually working, and this guy came in. He sat down beside me, and he was sitting across from me at the next table, and he just says, "Oh, you're working on your computer?" And I went, "Yeah." And he started talking, and I ended up just closing the computer and saying, "Yeah, now this is time to talk. It's not time to just stick your head back in and talk, look at your computer." And we ended up having a fascinating conversation about nothing. You know the way you can have a conversation about nothing, as I always call them? It's just, we just shoot at the breeze. He got up, he left. I don't even know who he was, where he was from. I got his first name was Paul, and that was it. And he got my first name, and boom, and that was it. So as you say, it's human to human and it's connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we want that. We want to connect. We want to be that's the way we're built.
It is. It's amazing. I could sit here and talk about this for hours. It's fascinating, and I think we're going to have to do a part 2 of this in a couple of weeks.
Love it, Alan. I am there when you got an opening in the schedule. Ping me up.
Brilliant stuff. And before we go, I always ask my guests one simple question. It's not related to the podcast. And that question is if you had the chance to invite someone to dinner, whether it be past or present, who would it be and why?
Wow. Out of the 7 billion people out there, 7.5 billion people today, there's some great people I'd love to connect with. I can think of some people from the past, but one person that probably comes to mind is a guy named Alvin Toffler, Toffler. So he and his wife Heidi wrote a book that was published in 1970. So it was researched in the late 60s. And the title of the book is called Future Shock. And so, again, kind of a little play on words. So we understand culture shock, right? So you grow up in your particular culture, but then you jump onto a jet airplane and you drop into a culture completely new, right? You haven't been eased into it. You don't know how to order food, how to get around, the language. I mean, it's everything because it happens so quickly. So in his book, Future Shock, and again, this is the late 60s when this is researched and written, he was saying change is happening so fast that we as humans are unable to keep up with it. And he predicted a lot of these things, a lot of things like telecommuting, right? He predicted the whole personal computer and all these different things. But he and his wife, Heidi. So Alvin and Heidi Toffler, although she was uncredited in her book, he died a few years back. She just died in February.
Wow. But
fascinating book. You have to get on the used book thing. Future Shock.
I must have a look for that. That sounds very interesting.
Fabulous.
That's one of the great things that I love about this podcast is the amount of literature that I've been that my eyes have been opened. It's amazing because I'd say 90% of the guests have all mentioned the book, and they've all mentioned. And I'm actually going to create a blog post and go back through all the podcasts and take all of these books and put them all onto a blog post, because I think it'd be a great piece of content to share out with so many people. Like we had Dr. Diane Hamilton on a couple of weeks ago, and she was talking about cracking the curiosity code.
That's a great episode.
I bought the book. Went out and bought the book, and it is incredible, just the information. But it's like that, hearing so many interesting stories and stuff like that. And so it really is. It's an absolute pleasure. Scott, how can people reach out if they want to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So the easiest way is, you can find me on all the social media well, not all, but Twitter, D_Scott, Instagram, D.Scott Smith. You can go to my website, D.ScottSmith.com. Send me email, Scott@DScottSmith.com. And you can call and text. You can find all of my information on the website.
Brilliant stuff. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Scott, today. And I definitely will be scheduling it in. We'll have to do another podcast very, very soon. And I won't leave it too long either, so we can keep them sort of close enough together. But definitely well worth doing another one anyway, because I think there's so much more information that we can talk about here on this. And yes, it was great. So I thank you for your time and for coming on the podcast today. And we wish you continued success in the future, and we will put all the links to all of the website and also the hellohuman.com as well, and all the information as well, and also your book as well. Just before we go, it is a Motivational Listener for Networking, and it's I've been sort of looking. I know you sent me a copy of it the other night, and I had a quick flick through it, and I says, I can't wait to get my feet into that. I'm definitely going to be reading that. So, Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and we will talk to you soon.
Cheers.
So my thanks to Scott for coming on the podcast today and sharing with us some fantastic tips and insights into motivational listening. And if you'd like more information about Scott, you can log on to his website at dscottsmith.com, and you can also jump onto the new project that he's working on as well at www.hellotherehuman.com. You can also connect with him across all of the usual social media platforms as well. So once again, my thanks to Scott for coming on and chatting with us today. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to the website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. And all of the podcasts are also available on Mixcloud, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we would be delighted if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as we're always thrilled to receive your feedback on the podcasts. You can also subscribe to the Social Media Talks podcast there, so you never miss an episode as well. And if you'd like the show notes for this episode or for any of the previous episodes, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please do get in contact with us. All you have to do is email us at smtalks@compassmedia.ie. And if you'd like to find out more about the services that Compass Media provide, please log on to our website, and you can find out all of the details about our social media marketing and training, management, and also the podcast services. So as I said, if you want to visit our website at www.compassmedia.ie. You can also reach out and connect with me across all of the usual social media platforms, and all you have to do is search for Alan Hennessy or for Compass Media. That's about all for today, so my thanks for joining me today on the podcast, and we look forward to your company next week. So until next week at the same time, as I always say, be social. Until the next time, bye-bye.
Social Media Talks podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.